All right, so we are starting a new unit on angle relationships. Okay, so you guys have probably seen this in 7th grade. They talked about angle relationships, but we're going to go back over them. Okay, so when we finish this foldable, I'm going to show you what it's going to look like. It's going to be a flip foldable. So that middle piece that says angle relationships will be on the top, and then you'll be able to open it to all these different pieces. Okay? Yes? This is yes? Okay. So let's start with linear pairs. Linear pairs is going to be the back page of your linear relationships. Okay? A linear pair is a pair of adjacent angles. What does adjacent mean? Take a guess. What does adjacent mean?
Maybe like opposite.
Okay, maybe like opposite. Any other guesses? Okay, so adjacent would be like next to. Okay, so Manny is adjacent to Johnny. It's across from. Okay, so a linear pair. A linear pair is a pair of adjacent angles with non-common. What does non-common mean?
Non-common is not usual.
Not usual, not the same, okay? With non-common signs that are opposite rays, okay? So, for example, this line is a ray. Yes. This is a ray. So you have a line, and then if you have a line coming off of it, that is a ray. Okay? So these are on opposite sides. Okay? And they are angles. You have this angle, and you have this angle. Okay? So it's a pair of adjacent angles that are next to each other that are not common. They don't have the same side, and they're on the opposite of a ray. Okay? This one does not have any common angles. This is not an example. Okay? Angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. Okay? Angle A, B, C, and angle C, B, and D are not a linear pair because they don't form a straight line. Because they do not form a line. Okay, so see on this first example where it's a straight line? This one does not have this straight line. Okay? It just has 2 rays or 3 rays. Okay, and if you have a straight line, how much does a straight line measure?
A straight line measures a straight line measures.
Okay, so if you were to turn in a complete circle, what would that be?
Oh, 180.
Close.
280. 360.
360. A complete circle is 360. A straight line is what, Manny?
A straight line is 360.
No, that's a circle.
280.
180.
180.
180, okay? So now we can look at, here we go. We have W, X, and Z that make a straight line, okay? So we have W, X, and Y that make this angle. And then we have Z, X, and Y that make this angle. And we are sharing letter X. So we have an angle here and an angle here. Okay, so if we know that a straight line equals 180, and we know that this angle equals 54, what does this one equal?
That one equals 50. No, that one equals
So X
8
plus 54 equals 180. So how would we figure that out?
You figure it out by divide. Or wait, no. Times it.
Subtract. We're going to do your opposite. So do 54 minus 180, which is going to give us 126 degrees. Okay? Okay, so a linear pair is an angle that makes a,
That makes a cross.
not a cross, what is this?
180.
180, which is what? A what?
Straight line.
Which is a line. Okay? Has to make a line. Okay? So let's look at this last example. Angle X and angle Y. Are those a linear pair?
No.
Why?
Wait, no. Because they're not the same.
They're not the same. What are they not?
They're not the same degrees. Or wait, no.
They're not a,
They're not a straight line.
they're not a line. They don't form a line. They don't form a line. Okay? Now let's go to the bottom of the page. These are adjacent angles. Adjacent angles. We learned a little bit about adjacent angles on the last one. Okay. So adjacent angles, A-D-J-A-C-N-T. Adjacent angles are two angles that lie in the same plane and have a common vertex and a common side. Common vertex and a common side. So a vertex is going to be right here where that little bend is, or where it crosses. That's your vertex, where it crosses. Manny, what's a vertex?
The vertex is where it crosses.
Good. Logan, what's a vertex?
Where it crosses.
Johnny, what's a vertex? Where it crosses.
Where it crosses.
Johnny, what's a vertex?
Where it crosses.
Good job. Okay. All right. So let's look at this first example. Angles 1 and 2 are adjacent angles. They are adjacent angles because they are on the vertex, they have a common vertex, and they have a common side. Okay, this line right here they have in common. They're both using that ray. Okay? Adjacent angles are next to each other. Adjacent angles are next to each other. Okay? So, do these share a common line and vertex? Does those look like this?
No.
No. So they are not adjacent angles. These are actually vertical angles, which we will learn about in just a second. All right, so our last example is right down here. Which angle is adjacent to angle 1? So here's angle 1. Which angle is adjacent?
Angle 3. No,
Angle 2.
Angle 2. Okay, so look, they share a vertex, so here's the vertex. And Manny, which line does this one share?
it shares 3 and 1.
Right here.
1.
So we're looking at this line
Okay.
and this line.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So angle 2. And when you write angle, you're going to write this little sign, this little sign next to it. Okay?
Okay.
All right, next page. Complementary angles at the very top. Excuse me. what you need?
This.
Well, I'll come back to it. All right. Our next one is complementary angles. Complementary angles, that's going to be our first thing right here. Complementary angles are two angles with a measurement that add up to 90 degrees. 90 degrees. Okay? So A and B in this first example are complementary because 40 degrees plus 50 degrees equals 90 degrees. Okay? You also can tell if it's complementary if it has this little box. What does that little box mean? If it's on an angle?
It
Means
means
that it's trigger.
no. It means that it has a acute, no.
You're close. You're on the right track.
Obtuse.
It means that it is a 90-degree
Oh.
angle. Okay? It means it's a 90-degree angle. Okay?
Is that just what that word says, or can you scoot over a little bit? Or, okay.
This. Okay. All right. So if we want this last one to be a complementary angle, what does it have to equal? What number does it have to equal?
90 degrees.
90 degrees. Good, Johnny. All right. So we know this angle is 32. So we've got x plus 32 equals 90. So what does our angle have to be? We're going to do minus 32 to cross those out and minus 32. So it's 90 minus 32.
Okay,
72.
Close.
62.
Close.
okay. This one is
Be 58 degrees. 58.
Wait, you said 92 minus.
90 minus 32.
Because 60 through 2.
No.
Because 9 minus 3 is.
Right, but you have to borrow and
Oh, yeah.
carry. All right, supplementary angles. Supplementary angles. So in our first blank, we're putting supplementary. Supplementary angles are two angles with a measure that add up to 180. 180 degrees. Okay? So in our first example, you can see that we have this angle that is 130, and we have this angle which is 50, and 130 plus 50 equals 180. So those are supplementary.
okay.
All right? If we have a straight line, what does a straight line measure?
The straight line measures 160. No.
Look at your paper from before. What does a straight line measure?
Straight line is
Not, 180.
180, which is what we're looking for in a supplementary angle, okay? So if you have a straight line with 2 points on it, are those supplementary?
Yes.
Yes, because it's on a straight line that measures 180, okay? So angles 1 and 2 are supplementary angles. All right, so let's look at this last one. It wants us to do the same thing as the others. Wants us to make it supplementary. So we are given the angle of 78. And what does it have to equal?
78.
What does it have to equal?
180.
180. So x plus 78 equals 180. So solve that. And this angle over here would have
What's
to
X?
be
I forgot.
102. 102 degrees. All right, our last one is vertical angles. Vertical angles. Okay, vertical angles are two non-adjacent. Okay, so before adjacent were angles that were right next to each other. Non-adjacents are going to be ones that are across from each other. Okay, that are formed by intersecting. What does intersecting mean?
Intersecting.
Like something together?
Kind of.
Entering it and like, I don't know.
Think about when you're driving and you go through an intersection. Why is it called an
It's
intersection?
like entering, doing
Oh,
like
like you're going
traffic.
into something.
Okay, so when you go into an intersection, you're crossing the lines of traffic, right? Because you have one, like if you think about where Chickadee is in Monroe Wells. So you have 180 and you have Chickadee, okay? That you've got two crosses where traffic flows both ways, right? So that's an intersection. So you're looking at where something is crossing.
See, now you want me to eat it. Now you got me.
I'm hungry too. It's almost lunch, Manny. All right. So vertical angles are two non-adjacent angles formed by an intersection or intersecting lines. Vertical angles are always congruent or equal. Are always equal. And then our big word is congruent. Congruent means equal. Okay? All right, so let's look at this first example. We're looking for the ones that would match together that are across from each other. So what number is across from angle number 1?
What was it again?
So here's 1,
3.
3. Very good. All right, and what else is across from each other?
2 and 4.
2 and 4. Very good. Okay, so remember, we'll do that one last. Let's go back to this other example. Okay, why are these not equal? Why does this not work?
They're not.
All the
One's
same.
Because you're not, one's
One's
going down,
bigger.
one's going up.
Yeah, they're
One
two
is
different
bigger.
sizes,
Yeah,
right?
one's bigger.
They aren't the same size. Okay? There's nothing intersecting. So this one goes from here to here. This one goes from here to here. They're not crossing each other. Okay, so remember, vertical angles are a cross. They are across from each other. Okay? And they are always equal or congruent. Okay?